Well, I hope you've had a good week. Welcome back. You know, before the days when cell phones were smartphones and long distance calls were free, my parents, doctors Walter and Barbara Eckelman, got their first cell phones. They were very smart people, my parents, both doctors, and yet when it came to understanding cell phone technology, these two very intelligent people didn't really grasp the concept. And so they would look to the experts, and they thought that was me. So I had to order their phones. I drove 3 hours down to their house and helped them buy the phones and get them set up, and then went back to my house and my wife and kids and didn't hear from them too much for about a month. And then they called me up and said, the phone stopped working. We don't understand. Both of them kind of died at the same time. My father was ready to call customer service and complain bitterly that the technology was flawed and all this sort of thing. And they said, could you come down and look at it and help us go to the store? We don't like the store people, so you speak to the... Okay, fair enough, Mom and Dad. So that weekend I came down, spent some time with them, said, okay, I'll figure this out. Give me the stuff. You've got the phones? Yes. Do you have the chargers? And they said, the chargers? I said, yeah, the things that connect to charge the battery. They have batteries? They had never charged the phones. They just lost all their electricity. Not that my parents suddenly lost all their brains, but here's the conclusion that I want to offer to you. Without guidance and daily practice, anyone, no matter how smart, will struggle to feel comfortable with a new form of communication. And so we're talking today a little more about knees that prayer. And this week, you've experienced that effort of trying to increase what I call your second language, that language that feels like you're something like in a foreign country. Because until heaven, prayer will always feel for you and for me like a second language, like a form of communication we're not completely used to. And so we look to the expert. And the expert, you see, is Jesus. And so I hope you've heard this week, and I hope you've read some scriptures as well, maybe Luke 18, maybe Jesus teaching his disciples about the Lord's Prayer. I hope you've read some of the Psalms as well. But the lesson on prayer, it's just kind of a challenge because it's kind of like reading a book on how to hit a golf ball or having somebody tell you how to fall in love. You know, years ago, I loved to water ski. I would water ski all the time. My parents took us up to Grandma and Grandpa's house in northern Wisconsin, which is right on a lake, and they had a boat. The boat didn't work very often, but when it did, we skied all the time. And I just loved it. I wanted to do it every moment of the day. However, I never read a book on how to water ski. And yet there are millions of books on how to pray, why to pray, the great benefits of prayer. How silly would it be to read a book about the joy of water skiing? It doesn't happen that way. You just get out and you do it. And so with prayer, you just have to go do it. But at the same time, I've been thinking the past few days, I did teach a lot of my friends how to water ski. And right now, I'm going to teach you how to water ski. Go ahead and do this wherever you are. You ready? All you have to do is keep your arms straight, your knees bent, your skis forward, and let the boat do the work. That's the lesson. That's the very simple lesson. And that's the challenge of water skiing, because everybody who gets up, who starts going on water skis, immediately they want to pull in and straighten their legs. And of course they face plant, swallow a little bit of the lake or the ocean that they're in, and it doesn't work out very well. However, Those are the basics. It's really simple. Now, once you get good at water skiing, guess what? You do all sorts of other things. Once you get above the water, you try all sorts of things, and sometimes you actually bend your arms to pull in. Sometimes you actually straighten your legs, and then you drop one ski. Who knew about that? Then, if you really get good, better than I ever was, you drop two skis and you barefoot, which is a whole different experience, and you have to absolutely do different things to get that to work. But trying that back to basics experience, that's the beginning. For prayer, it's kind of the same way. I hope this week you've tried something new, or maybe you've just gotten back to basics. I gave you something before. Let me give you something that is the back to basics experience of prayer that you and I can remember. Because it's as simple as anything I can imagine, and it actually relates to what it's like to do something we're not used to doing very often, which is get on a plane and fly. When you're getting to the airport, before you get on the plane, what's the thing you do? Well, you go through TSA. And TSA, I want to suggest to you, is the three letters that can remind you and me how to pray when we're simply tongue-tied before Jesus. It goes like this. T. Thank Him. Okay? Thank Him. This includes praise, telling Him how wonderful God is, because when we do that, we get out of ourselves. But thank Him. Lord, thank you for this. I'm so grateful that you are this. Thank you for what you've done in my life. That's the T of TSA. The S is simply share. Share with Him what you're feeling like, what's going on, how things are in your life. This includes things that we call lamentation, that is complaining to God about how things are going. Read the Psalms if you think that's not really biblical, because it is. And then also confession. Lord, I've fouled up, I've done horrible things, I regret these things in my life, I haven't served you as I should, I wish I could have done better. Just tell Him, share how you are feeling. TS, and lastly, A. A means ask. This includes petition, that is asking for myself, intercession, asking for other people, TSA. Because if you want to actually get into the sky, if you want to launch your prayer life, if you want to leave the ground and be up in the air where the world seems different, it takes that TSA experience to get there. And so this week, I hope you've practiced that. I hope you've tried something new. Maybe you've already been praying and prayer is something you're able to do. I hope still you tried to do something a little different this week. But I want you to remember something most of all. Every time you and I pray, remember this phrase: however much you or I want to seek God, it cannot compare with how much He wants you and me to find Him. However much you and I want to seek God, it can't compare with how much God has done to draw us to Him, how much He wants you and me to find Him. I hope you've enjoyed your prayer. Enjoy your discussion now. God bless. Once again, hello. It is hard to believe that we are nearing the end of this Living Proof series. It's really quite something to think. It seems like almost yesterday that we began. And here's what I want you to do. Take some time and ask yourself the question, how have I changed because of this? Even more productive might be, ask the group members that are there, what have you seen, if anything, different in me? How have my comments been different? Remind me of something I've said over the past number of weeks that has been a growth from God. And maybe the most productive is if you're married, ask your spouse, has anything changed in me over the last 6-7 weeks? You know, this is something that is tremendously important for each one of us. Because listening to those answers, sometimes we're not sensitive to how we're changing, but we are changing. You know, we may seem too old for this, but it's really true that you and I are designed by God to grow. And for most Christians in the USA, the most challenging thing to grow in our own lives is the growth of our outward expression of our faith. People in other countries know that they need to be witnesses to others because the Christian church is so weak, so oppressed in any number of ways. But for Americans, we design so much in our lives for our own comfort that growth is really something we don't really celebrate. And yet, to be a Christian is designed to grow, not grow up so much as grow out. Somebody who was in computer technology said to me once that they realized that Christianity was not an end user experience. That means you and I are not designed just to receive and to hold on to all of God's blessings. Instead, we're designed to share them with others. So what does that look like? Jesus designed his church maybe as the world's only organization shaped primarily for those people who are not yet members, who are not yet investors in this thing we call the Church of Jesus Christ. You know, for the last few days of Living Proof curriculum, as you're going through the experience of your journals, you're probably going to come to the most important part of that. We call it Feet That Go. I want to show you right now a piece of art from Thomas Blackshear. This, to me, describes what Jesus did for you and me. We are designed as people, you see the man there being held up by the arms of Jesus. And do you notice, for instance, the nail-scarred hands of Jesus holding this man up? Now take a look down at the man's two hands that are near the middle of his torso. You see what's in his hands? Nails and a hammer. What Jesus did for you and for me is that he is the one who was harmed. He's the one that we have crucified by our own sin, by our own regrets, by our own moral failings, and yet he comes to support us. He came to earth so that you and I could be taken care of by him. Now, as you and I have that faith in Christ, what Jesus wants you and me to do, for those who have no clue about his love and his sacrifice, is to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to hold others up, to let them do to us maybe a little bit what we have done to Jesus, and in that witness, make a difference in their lives. I want to end our time with the beginning experience, the beginning phrase that started this whole thing. Jesus saying to his disciples, "You will be my witnesses." He didn't say it as a command, he said it as a promise. You will be. And so it's time. It's time to be living proof, to actually go out, to be the church that's on the road, always doing for others first and foremost. And so, as we end this time, I hope you realize and take hold of the truth that everything that God has grown inside of you is something for you to share. So it's time. It's time to get out of ourselves because God has made you and me living proof. It's time to get going, to be feet that go. God bless. Take care.